Well, hello everyone. My name is Daphne Moland and I'm a ranger at Wheeler National Wildlife Refuge. You may notice my patch, and we're talking about the summer reading program here with the Decatur Library, and we're going to be doing all about animals. And at Wheeler National Wildlife Refuge, we're part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. There are 560 some odd refuges all over the country, set aside for the conservation and preservation of our natural resources, wildlife, and plants. So we're going to be talking about wildlife today that is found on Wheeler Refuge. And many of you are right here from Decatur. So Wheeler Refuge is right down the road from you. Go visit. Enjoy the outdoors. Go fishing. Go hiking. Go bird watching. Go canoeing. And in the wintertime, see all the thousands of migratory birds that visit us. But there are wildlife at Wheeler all the time. So we're going to be talking about some of those, such as the 300 different species of birds, 47 different species of mammals, 115 different species of fish, and 75 varieties of reptiles and amphibians. And each one is special. Each one has its own stories. So in honor of Tales and Tales, we're going to learn a few facts about some of the different wildlife that share our world. So we're going to get started with a mammal, an antler from a deer. So white-tailed deer, get it? Tail? Anyway, white-tailed deer are the deer that we have around this area. And the bucks, which of course are the males, are the ones that have antlers. Many people call antlers horns, and they're not horns. Antlers fall off every year, and the bucks grow a new set. So they're very different than horns. Some people also think that with an antler, you can tell how old a deer is. That is an old wise tale, and that is not true. You cannot tell a deer's age by his antlers. You actually tell his age by his teeth. So you would look at the wear of the teeth, not that he's going to open his mouth and let you see him, but a biologist can check the wear of the teeth and age the deer within a few months, usually. So it's pretty cool. Now, another mammal, a very important mammal, and a mammal that has a lot of people that don't like them necessarily, are bats. Now, all of the bats that we have in Alabama eat insects. Not flying insects. They're nocturnal. So they come out at night, they fly around, and they catch lots of bugs. As a matter of fact, one bat can eat over 1,000 insects a night. Just one. So when you see a bat flying around, and you will see them soon, because hey, it's summertime, or almost summertime. And when you see those bats flying, and they're catching mosquitoes and beetles and moths, what's not eating you as much? Mosquitoes. So if you see them, tell them thank you. And we actually on the refuge have several species that are threatened or endangered. And if you're not familiar with what that means, it means that there's not a lot of them left. So they have special protection to try to make sure that they're around when you're older, when I'm older, when one of these days I have grandchildren. So animals such as that need a little special protection, but you can go to some of those bat caves and actually see them come out at night and forage over the rivers catching mosquitoes. So check that out. Oh, by the way, since they're mammals, yes, they drink milk, just like we do. And the mama bats will actually hang upside down on a cave wall and nurse their little babies. And they call those babies pups. Okay, so pretty neat. Now we're going to move from that to bird species. The eagle, the bald eagle. Is he bald? No. That's just an old wives' tale as well. He actually has feathers on the head and on the tail that's white once he gets 5 years old. Before 5, their colors are all brown. So your younger eagles are brown all over. And an eagle is a bird of prey, a raptor. And they catch their food. A lot of times it's fish, but it could be turtles, a few ducks. Sometimes they eat dead stuff in the water. But they usually will catch things in the water, such as fish, and they catch them with their feet. And they have really sharp claws and a hooked and sharp beak. Now, the bald eagle is our national symbol. So this is what you think of when you think of the United States of America. The bald eagle. Beautiful birds. And their nests, oh my gosh, their nests can weigh over 2,000 pounds. Pretty awesome. These two birds, we had a lot of them this winter. The refuge is a destination for migratory birds, and they migrate to the refuge in the wintertime. It's an awesome time of the year to see thousands and thousands of ducks, geese, and cranes, such as sandhill cranes, and a handful of the whooping crane. Now, sandhill cranes are the most common crane in North America, actually in the world. And the sandhill crane on the refuge, we will have anywhere from 20 to 30,000 sandhill cranes a year. And one of the coolest things, these birds are big. As a matter of fact, they stand about 4 feet tall. I think that'd be about right. And they got long, wide wings. And in the wintertime, they hang out in the fields and the edge of the water, eating seeds and some of the crops, such as corn that's left over in the fields. They also eat some bugs, but they hang out around those areas and they dance. And they just do all types of really cool dances. So visit in the wintertime, visit anytime to enjoy the refuge, but visit in the wintertime to really appreciate some of these amazing birds that migrate in. Now they have a cousin that's similar, very similar to the sandhill crane, and it's called the whooping crane. And the whooping crane is 5 feet tall, so they're larger. And they are white with black wing tips, which this thing doesn't open up to see the tips. The whooping crane is one of the most endangered birds in the whole world. There are not many of them left. As a matter of fact, there's less than 100 east of the Mississippi River. So we are very, very blessed in this area that whooping cranes visit us in the wintertime. Now, at this point, they're all back north. Many of them have tracking devices on their legs. And they keep a check on where they go because they're very concerned about this species and whether it will survive and prosper and be around a long time. But so there's been a lot of studies on the whooping cranes, but their numbers are better than they were. And we are very, very blessed. I think we had 18 this winter total in this area. So we are very blessed to have the opportunity to see the whooping crane in the wild at the refuge in the wintertime. And like the sandhill cranes, they also dance. So pretty awesome. Now, when you think of birds, we'll think of things like cardinals and blue jays and crows. And birds just have awesome sounds. The songs are amazing. But one of the most soulful, and occasionally you'll see them around the river. It's rare, we don't see them often, but occasionally you will. And one of the most soulful sounds of all bird life is the loon. Now, obviously, you would need to be around water to hear that sound. But one of the neat things about a loon is that loons can dive, they can fly, they can do all these cool things, but they can't walk. A loon cannot walk. Their feet are positioned very far back on their bodies. So many times, the times that I've seen a loon around this area, other than in the river, was when we would get a call from downtown Decatur after a flood. And loons would swim up into the canals, but when the water dropped, they would get stranded because they couldn't walk and they can't fly from the ground. So their bodies have their legs way back in the back. So they can dive under the water, they can run across the top of the water to get airborne and fly. But what they cannot do is walk on the ground. So, pretty interesting. Honestly, we went to rescue a bird that was injured when all you had to do was pitch him up in the air. He just needed to be picked up. Let's see, duck life. Now this duck is called a gadwall. Beautiful. This is a puddle duck or a dabbling duck. So when you see ducks in the water, you might think of a mallard. Many times they say quack, quack. Oh, by the way, the old wise tale about ducks quacking, not making an echo, that's not true. When a duck quacks, he makes an echo just like everyone else. So dabbling ducks, when you see them in the water swimming, if you will notice, you will see them stick their heads under the water and their little behinds up in the air. Now what they are doing is they're eating different things that are in the water and filtering out some of the small bugs and plant life that float around in the water. So they call them dabbling ducks. You may also see them in a field eating crops such as corn. But we also have a large variety of other types of ducks besides dabbling ducks that show up here at Wheeler in the wintertime. They're called diving ducks. So many of the species of diving ducks, how they actually, you can see them in the river, and then you will watch them and they dive completely under the water, and then they'll pop back up. Okay, so these ducks are actually heavier. Their bodies are very dense, and that makes them be able to stay under the water and not float up as easily. So diving ducks have a tendency to be found in the deeper parts of the river. And they also eat lots of fish and bugs and other things that are found underwater in deeper waters. But this particular duck is called a hooded merganser. See? Looks like he's got a pretty cool little hood going on there with his feathers, but hooded merganser. And last but not least, on the highlights of the birds, Alabama state bird. This is the northern flicker. Now, the northern flicker is actually in the woodpecker family. Okay, most of us know him as the yellowhammer because it's Alabama state bird. And a woodpecker, of course, eats lots of bugs, but he'll also eat some different things on the ground, such as acorns and other types of nuts that he can eat and different bugs that he'd find on the ground. They are many times, even though they're woodpeckers and they will eat from a tree, they will also be found commonly on the ground. But this is Alabama state bird, the yellowhammer. And now, just because I want to highlight it, because it's awesome. These shells are found right around the river. And, on the refuge. We got them so we could talk about mussels. Now, not these mussels, okay? But mussels, many times people look at them and say, hey, they're clams. Kind of freshwater clams, I guess. But they filter out different things in the water. Lots of them in the Tennessee River. As a matter of fact, Alabama ranks number 1 in the species of freshwater mussels. We have more freshwater mussels than any state in the whole country. We have more freshwater mussels in our state than pretty much anywhere in the whole world. That's awesome. So when you're walking along the river, check it out and see if you see some. Now, you need to leave them there, but if you do see them, check them out. Look at how many different styles there are. And because of pollution, many of them are in trouble. There's a lot of mussels that are either endangered or threatened, or they are on the list to possibly become that way. So learn more about your mussels, because they are very, very common around us, and we are uniquely blessed with a lot of species. Another type of animal that we are blessed with are reptiles and amphibians. And this is your turtle. This is a turtle shell. Now, Alabama is very blessed with freshwater turtles as well. As a matter of fact, our state has more freshwater turtles than any state in the whole country. Alabama ranks number 1 in the different species of freshwater turtles. There are many of those that are endangered as well. Our waters, we need to be careful with. Now, a fun one that many of us don't think about in Alabama, but we do have some. And we do have some on the refuge. And that is alligators. So alligators, of course, are a very large reptile. One of the neat things about alligators is kind of interesting. When the mama alligator builds a nest, she builds a mound of leaves and sticks and looks like a mulch pile. And inside of it, she lays her eggs. And she kind of leaves them alone. She doesn't sit on them the way a bird does, because a bird is warm-blooded and alligator is cold-blooded. But the nest itself is protected by the mulch pile. And she kind of hangs out around it to keep an eye on it. But the temperature, if the nest is really, really hot, because it's a real hot summer and the nest is hot, the babies hatch out as boys. If it's really cool, because it's a cool summer, the babies hatch out as girls. Isn't that kind of neat? So, pretty interesting fact there about alligators. The temperature of the surrounding determines what the babies hatch out as. Last but not least, my friend, my buddy, I'm going to talk a little bit about snakes. Alabama, our state, is blessed with snakes as well. We have about 50 species. Only 6 are venomous. Now, most snakes, absolutely harmless. All snakes can bite, and it's hard to know the difference. So, if you see a snake, just leave it alone. Ignore it. Walk away. Visit your library. Pick out a book on snakes and learn more about them. Now, snake life around this area, all snakes in the whole world eat meat. They all eat some type of animal. And they don't chew. So they eat whatever they eat whole. So many of the snakes around us eat mice, rats, some of them eat insects, others eat worms. This particular snake eats lots of mice, rats, and bird eggs and other small mammals. This particular snake is a gray rat snake. And his name, of course, many of you may know, his name is Big Boy. Now, Big Boy's been around with me for a long time now, several years. And gray rat snakes are great climbers. So when you're outside and you're walking around, you might see a snake like this in the corner of an old shed, climbing through the rails. You might see him up in a tree. You may see him on the ground. They're very common. Most of us know them as chicken snakes. That's a common name for this snake. And as far as encountering them, they can bite. All snakes have little teeth, but he's not venomous. It would hurt, and it would scare you, but he's not venomous. Now, a venomous snake, if it were to bite, it can be very dangerous. So you don't want to mess with them, but do appreciate them. This particular snake, an old gray rat snake or some of the other snakes, living in a shed behind your house, catching mice and rats. What's not getting in your house as much? Mice and rats. So these particular snakes are extremely helpful to people because they help control rodents. But they also are just part of nature. They're part of what makes Wheeler wonderful, part of what makes Alabama wonderful, part of what makes our world wonderful. We are blessed with wildlife and nature, and snakes are just a part of that. Now, when a snake catches his prey, such as Big Boy, he's a constrictor. So they squeeze their prey until it dies, and then they eat it whole. And of course, they can eat something larger than their own head. So imagine if you were to open your mouth real wide. They swallow their prey that's larger than their own head, which is pretty amazing. A lot of people think snakes cannot hear. And while their hearing is kind of not all that great, they have an internal ear, but it's covered up by meat and skin and bone. And so although people say they feel vibrations and that's how they hear, we kind of do the same thing, but we have an opening in our head. Okay, so we have an external ear and a canal. A snake doesn't have that, but he does have the inside parts. So hearing is not their strongest sense, but their sight is pretty good, even though they can't blink at you. No winking from a snake. Now, their strongest sense is their sense of smell. And they actually do that not only with their nostrils, but with their tongue. So their tongue is amazing. And when they flick their tongue, they are smelling or tasting the air. It's a special sense that we don't have. So that's one of the strongest things one of the best ways that they know about their world is by using their tongue and smelling the things around them. So, on the last point, visit the refuge. Get outside. Enjoy nature. And when you're not able to do that, when it's rainy and yucky weather, make sure to visit your library and pick up some books on wildlife and the outdoors. Thank you.